So we're going to start out today with a walkthrough of the next turn of the crank of frequently made mistakes that I've seen while I've been reviewing the programming assignment 3 questions that I've been asked. So here are some things. First, make sure you don't try to load the movies from the database explicitly in your code. That's done by an auto-wired bean in the base service, so there's no need to do that. It should just go ahead and work. Continuing on with some things from the client side, this is not the right way to compare Java string objects for equality. Instead, you want to use the right check to do this. If you're confused, please check with ChatGPT. It will tell you very quickly what you need to do the comparison properly. So please call this recommendations, not get recommendations. It probably should be get recommendations, but we haven't updated the test yet to do that. Down here, please don't check to see whether the strategy is blank. Please check to see if it equals ParallelFlux, and then throw an illegal exception if it doesn't. And then also make sure you use the right names here. They expect not to have the get prefix, although that could probably be improved. Now let's turn over to the server side of the house. So this is a good idea, but not quite there because the tests don't support it at the moment. I think we've actually added support to do this, but please don't make the call to get all movies inside of search at the moment because the tests don't check for that. They probably will, and I think they do now, but your tests don't do that. Likewise, this complicated comparison is too complicated. So replace this with a using comparator.comparing and then use the get title method reference. That'll be a cleaner and more concise way to do the check. Down here, please make sure that you do step 1 properly. Again, my comments weren't particularly helpful. It says helper method. It should have said helper method at the bottom of the class. There's a helper method there that does factoring out the code that's repeated here, so you don't need to repeat it here. So just refine that. Also, don't use equals, ignore case, just use equals. We don't need to do that. Never call block. That's a bad thing to do generally when you're doing reactive programming, so only do it if you absolutely can't help it, but you can help it here. And then this is the wrong call to make. You don't want to call get top recommendations sort. You want to call it get top recommendations heap, which does a better job of doing this. Moving down, some other things. There's no need to use a hash set here to figure out what movies are missing in the watched movies list. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to go through and make sure that every movie in the watched movie list is actually in the database of movies. And if you find ones that aren't, you will exclude them. And so this is just too complicated. It's actually much easier. Just convert watch movies to a stream, filter out any movies that aren't found in M movie map, and then convert the results back to a list. So you can do that more concisely without needing to use a set. Down here, please don't use array list explicitly. Use a stream, kind of like we just talked about above. It's tedious and error prone to use array lists. Also, if you end up excluding things and everything's missing, like every movie they wanted to check was not in the movies database, you need to bail out. So if you end up with watched movies count or whatever you called this being empty, you need to bail out here. And then down here, this code is too complicated. You want to basically use the cosine similarity utils sum of cosines method to do this. You can factor all this stuff out. There's no need to have a loop. Anytime you find yourself writing a for loop in your program, you're probably, in a reactive program, you're probably doing something that could be improved. And then finally, again, don't call get all movies. We don't want to do this. It's got extra overhead, and the tests don't like it. And this is actually just the wrong thing to do because it's going to end up creating a flux stream of ranking objects with the default value of 0, but that's unnecessary because that's all done later on down here. Also, you want to iterate through a flux stream of map entries, not a flux stream of ranking objects or something. So when you make that change here, you'll end up using a different comparison. You'll use the map entry get key method to get the movie title rather than what's done here. And then down here, you don't want to be doing any sorting operations. This is where you want to have a map call and make a new ranking object based on the contents of the map entry and the sum of cosines method. So other things to kind of clean up. So that's the walkthrough of the frequently made mistakes that I've seen up to this point. So please make sure you address those before you submit your final solution.